Close your eyes and picture Royal Troon. The wind whips off the Irish Sea. The rough is thick and tough. The crowd is packed tight around the historic links. Now, listen closely. You don't hear him. That is the problem. Phil Mickelson is not just missing the 2026 Open Championship. He has been completely erased from the official list. And this is not just one missed tournament. This is history. For the first time in 36 years, Phil Mickelson will not tee it up in a single major championship. Not Augusta, not the PGA, not the US Open, and not the Open. 0 majors in a calendar year. That has never happened in his professional life. The golf world is in shock. But here is the thing. Nobody knows the full story. At first, we heard whispers about family issues. Then came the cold reality of his eligibility expiring. But just weeks ago, something exploded behind the scenes. A story dropped that turned whispers into a roar. It involves misconduct, personal choices, and the ugly side of golf politics. The silence around Phil right now is not just about his game. It is about a man standing at a crossroads with nowhere left to turn. We are going to break this down piece by piece, because this is not just a news headline. This is the slow, painful end of a legend's career. But before we dive into the details, I want your honest take. Do you think Phil has been treated unfairly by the golf establishment, or do you think he made choices that led him to this point? Drop your opinion in the comments. And if you want to hear the complete timeline of how we got here, including the shocking allegations that sealed his fate, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are just getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next. Let me take you back to April. That is where this story really begins. Phil Mickelson was supposed to be at Augusta National for the Masters. That is his tournament. He owns 3 green jackets. The crowd adores him there. But just days before the first tee, the news broke. He was out. The official reason? A family health issue. He said he needed to step away for a while. The golf world understood. We all knew his wife Amy had battled breast cancer years ago. Everyone assumed this was the same fight. They wished him well. They expected him back in a few weeks. No panic, just prayers. May arrives and the narrative cracks. The PGA Championship at Valhalla comes calling. This is another major where Phil has history. He won the PGA in 2021 as the oldest major champion ever. That was the miracle. That was the peak. But when the entry list dropped, his name was missing again. No dramatic statement this time. No heartfelt video. Just a quiet, cold withdrawal. The whispers started. Something was not adding up. Now we get to the US Open, and this is where things turn from confusing to alarming. Phil is not injured. He is not saying he is sick. He simply refuses to even try to qualify. He goes on record and says he will not ask for a special exemption. His exact words, "If I have no exemption, I won't play." The US Open is the only major he has never won. He finished runner-up 6 times, 6 painful times, and he just walks away from it. That is not the Phil we know. That is a man who has given up. Fast forward to the Open Championship at Royal Troon. This one hurts the most. Phil won this tournament in 2013. He has a 10-year champion's exemption that should have covered him until age 60. He was already on the list. He was supposed to be there. But when the official field was published, his name was gone. Erased. Not injured, not suspended, just absent. No explanation. Just a ghost where a legend used to stand. So here is the reality. We have 4 majors, 4 disappearances, and 3 different excuses. Family health, quiet silence, pride and refusal. None of them truly fit, because if it was just his wife's health, why would he publicly dismiss the US Open so coldly? If it was his game, why would he skip the Open when he had a guaranteed spot? The math does not work. The narrative is broken. And that is when the reporters started digging. Because real fans know Phil is not the type to just fade away quietly. That is not his style. He fights. He claws. He gambles. So what really happened? The truth started surfacing just weeks before Troon. And it is not about his back. It is not about his age. It is about something far darker. Something that forced the golf establishment to pull the plug. Let's start with the first piece of the puzzle. The family health excuse. It was believable at first. Amy Mickelson is a fighter. She survived breast cancer in 2009, and Phil always said she was his rock. But as the weeks passed, something felt off. Phil never gave updates. He never posted pictures of them together. He just went silent. And that silence is loud to people who know him. Phil is not a private person. He shares everything. His gambling, his risky shots, his diet, his workouts. But on this, nothing. Then came a report that made people stop and think. The family issue was real, but it might not have been the only reason. Some insiders started whispering that Phil was using it as a shield, a protective cover for something else. And when you look at his actions, that starts to make sense. If your wife is truly sick, do you tell the world you are walking away from the US Open because you won't ask for an exemption? That is cold. That is calculated. That is not a man worried about his family. That is a man worried about his reputation. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The LIV golf factor. Phil was the face of the Saudi-backed league. He took the money. He burned bridges. He called the PGA Tour a dictatorship. He made enemies. And when you make enemies in golf, they do not forget. The USGA, the R&A, the PGA of America, they all answer to the same old guard, the same people Phil insulted. So when it came time to give him a break, they had none to give. The USGA made that crystal clear. When asked about giving Phil a special exemption for the US Open, the CEO gave a cold, firm answer. No, not even a maybe, just a flat refusal. That is rare for a six-time major winner. They usually get a pass, but Phil burned that bridge. And the Open Championship? The R&A did not have to kick him out. They just waited. They let him withdraw. They let him save face. But the message was received. Phil is not welcome in the club anymore. But even that, the politics, the grudges, the live money, still does not explain the full picture. Because what came next made all of that look like minor background noise. Just weeks before Royal Troon, a bombshell article dropped. Written by Alan Shipnuck, the same guy who wrote Phil's biography. The same guy who knows Phil better than almost anyone. And what he published turned the golf world upside down. Shipnuck spoke to 19 people, 19 sources, and they all told the same story. Allegations of inappropriate behavior stretching back years. They said Phil showed a nude photo of himself to the wife of a fellow professional golfer. They said he made a deeply inappropriate comment to her. Something like, "I will leave my bedroom door open tonight, and when Pat falls asleep, I want you to come over." That is not a rumor. That is a specific accusation, backed by multiple sources. The report also said Phil was kicked out of not one, but two private country clubs. His home club, the Farms, removed him. Other clubs followed. This is not just bad behavior. This is a pattern. This is a history of crossing lines that you cannot uncross. And for the first time, the public saw a different Phil. Not the smiling gambler, not the fan favorite, but a man who had been protected for too long. His lawyer responded. He said some of the claims were false and others were mistakes Phil had already admitted to. That is not a denial. That is a confession wrapped in legal language. He did not sue for defamation. He did not threaten the reporter. He just said, some are false, others were mistakes he admitted to. In other words, the core of the story is true. Suddenly, the withdrawals made sense. The Masters? He was hiding. The PGA? He was avoiding the press. The US Open? He knew he would face questions he could not answer. And the Open? He had a guaranteed spot, but he chose to disappear. Because he knew the reporters would be waiting. He knew the questions would be brutal, and he knew the R&A would not protect him. So the man who once kissed the claret jug with pure joy was now running from it. And the question changes from, why is he missing, to, will he ever come back at all? That is where the real tragedy begins, because even if Phil wanted to return, the door is locked. The PGA Tour will not take him back without a long ban and a massive fine. The Champions Tour, where older players go to compete, is run by the same people. They will not welcome him either. He burned that bridge completely, and now the LIV Golf League, his only lifeline, is on shaky ground. Reports are swirling that the Saudi backers are losing interest. They are pulling money. They are scaling back. Some insiders even say LIV might file for bankruptcy. If that happens, Phil has nowhere to go. He becomes a man without a country, a legend without a league, a six-time major winner who cannot get a tee time. Shipnuck said it best. He said if LIV folds, Phil becomes a man without a country. That is not an exaggeration. That is a prediction, and it is coming true in real time. The 2026 season might be the last time we see Phil Mickelson in any professional capacity. Not because he is too old. He proved in 2021 that age does not matter. Not because his game is gone. He can still hit the shots. No, the reason is much simpler. He has no home, and no one wants to give him one. Think about that for a second. A man who won 6 majors, who gave us some of the most thrilling moments in golf history, who made us believe that left-handed magic could beat the odds. And now, he is sitting at home, watching the majors on TV, knowing he will never play in one again. And that is the part that stings the most, because 2026 marks the first year since 1990 that he is absent from every single major. That is 36 years of consistent greatness, wiped out by a single season of chaos. In 1990, Phil was a kid. He was still an amateur. He had not even turned pro yet. He had no idea what was coming. He had no idea he would become one of the most beloved players on the planet. And now, in 2026, that same kid is a 55-year-old man whose name is being scrubbed from entry lists. It is almost poetic in the cruelest way. The man who played with so much joy is now playing with none. The man who always had a smile is now hiding from the cameras. And the man who never backed down from a fight is finally cornered with no escape. So what do we take away from all of this? Well, the easy answer is that Phil made his own bed. He took the LIV money. He insulted the tour. He made choices that had consequences. And those consequences are now here. He cannot blame the media. He cannot blame the R&A. He cannot blame the USGA. He made choices, and now he is paying the price. But there is another side to this. The side that remembers the 2013 Open at Muirfield. That final round 66. The stinger that rolled up to the pin. The roar that shook the grandstands. He was 43 years old, and he played like a man possessed. He kissed that claret jug with such passion that you could feel it through the screen. That Phil was a hero. That Phil was untouchable. Now, that hero is gone, replaced by a man who is being erased from history. Not because he lost his swing, but because he lost his way. And the saddest part? He knows it. You can see it in his absence. The silence is his admission. So here we are. The 2026 major season is almost over, and the most talked about story is not who won, it is who is missing. It is the ghost of Royal Troon. It is the empty spot in the field. It is the name that was once on the top of the leaderboard, now erased from the entry list. That is the legacy of Phil Mickelson. Not the wins, not the trophies, but the way it all fell apart, and the way he vanished when we needed answers the most. So I have to ask you one final time. Was this his fault? Did the golf establishment push him out? Or did he simply run out of places to hide? I want to know what you think. If you made it this far, you are a real golf fan. You care about the history, you care about the players, and you care about the truth. That is exactly why this channel exists. Hit that like button if you believe Phil deserves a second chance. Subscribe to stay updated on every twist and turn in this story, because this is not over. Not yet. Thank you for listening. And remember, in golf, you are never truly gone until you stop fighting. But for Phil Mickelson, the fight might finally be over.